Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our third installment of the From Old to Bold webinar series. My name is Lauren Searle. I'm an investment advisor with Richardson Wealth. I've been running a successful wealth management practice for over 25 years, where I've been providing a process to help high net worth investors and their families to grow their wealth tax efficiently and to help them accomplish their short and long-term goals. My practice offers best-in-class resources to help clients with investing, along with retirement, estate, and insurance planning. I also like to say that I'm here to help those that want to be helped, because helping those that don't want to be helped isn't so easy or fun. For those of you who aren't familiar with the From Old to Bold series, it's a series I created to help physically and financially independent seniors to stay independent and thrive. So far this year, we've had two webinars, one focused on strategic fall prevention and the second on strategic fraud prevention. Both webinar recordings can be found on my website. I consider our topic this evening to be somewhat of an extension of our last webinar that focused on strategic fraud prevention. Today's topic is designating your trusted contact person, or TCP for short, is relevant for independent seniors, but also applicable to anybody who owns an investment account and would like to add an additional layer of protection against fraud and exploitation. I'm very excited to introduce my special guest panelist for tonight, Risa Arbuck, an estate lawyer and a partner at Torkin Mains. Risa has great experience helping people organize their estates and can provide lots of color and commentary on designating your TCP. So I'm going to start our slideshow, and I think we're going to hold the questions to the end, but certainly there'll be time, and you can, I will unmute, or you can send me a text in the chat box that you should be able to find in front of you. Oh, there we are. Okay. So, designating your trusted contact person. What is a trusted contact person? It really is someone you authorize your financial advisor to contact in limited circumstances. A trusted contact person is in place as an additional resource for your financial advisor to make decisions about protecting your account. It's something that the U.S. have added to their financial institutions a couple of years ago. It was in 2018, and now the Canadian securities regulators have adopted it for Canada. So it's really, the CCP is fairly simple, but it has some complexities behind it, which we'll go into, but it's an additional resource to help your financial advisor make decisions protecting your account. Going forward, the Canadian securities regulators, they've mandated that when an advisor, like myself, opens up a new client account, or when formally updating a client's account, we're required to ask clients to designate a TCP. If a client wishes not to assign one, I have an obligation as advisor to properly document that, and that goes on the records in case something that might have been avoided by TCP, and if there wasn't one assigned, it doesn't come back to the advisor. So why is a TCP important? Well, as I was alluding to, it can provide a little bit more peace of mind, knowing that your financial advisor has someone that you trust to help them make better decisions. It's someone who can be there when you run into an unexpected crisis or an accident where you may not be physically up to making decisions about your account or making good decisions about your account and your finances. And I talk about, everybody's aware, you get caught up in, God forbid, a bad case of pneumonia or even COVID these days, and you can't think straight. And it's really important to have people who might be able to help the advisor identify that a client is making poor decisions. And it's not just for independent seniors. I have an individual I know, they went to Mexico. They're fairly young, I'd say just over half my age, I would say. And they were in a biking accident. And so when they got back to work, it turned out they had a slight concussion and they couldn't really concentrate anymore, and really weren't able to work without headaches. And so even if, you don't have to be a retired senior to where an accident can cause, serious vulnerability to your financial acumen and making good decisions. And we all know that as one gets older, it's not uncommon for a person to lose mental capacity. And again, the trusted contact person can help a financial advisor assess that. Also, as we talked in the last session, fraud predators and online scammers are everywhere. And this is another tool to use in that case. And recently I've had some very interesting discussions. And Risa, I'm just going to hand it over to you. You have some firsthand experience with fraud predators.
Thank you, first of all, Lauren, for inviting me to participate. It's a pleasure. As we discussed, I had an advisor who had called me because they had a situation where a client was requesting for funds to be wired to a gentleman. And she had told her advisor that she had been on a cruise and had met, this gentleman. And all of a sudden, initially there was a certain amount of funds that were being requested to be wired to him, and the amounts increased, as did the regularity of these transfers. And the advisor called me because he was concerned that, this person was potentially a predator, and you hear these things with online romances and whatever else. And I think to a certain extent, he really didn't know how to broach the topic with his client as to, that she was potentially being taken advantage of. And I think that this is really a situation where, had there been a TCP, somebody who the advisor could call to discuss this with, the person who she's trusted, and together they could maybe have come up what was a good way to approach the client in a manner that they could discuss this topic to make sure that she was protected and not being taken advantage of.
And this is, I think, really comes down to the key part of the trusted contact person, in that it's not going to be a solution for everybody all the time, but there'll be certain circumstances where it really is effective. And so, we're not, as a financial advisor, when would we reach out for a trusted contact person? It's, when would it trigger a call? And it's not going to be that common. It's in limited circumstances. So, basically, if an advisor can't get in touch with their client, it's not fun. I've had a client that went camping in the backwoods, and I couldn't reach her for many weeks, and I became somewhat of a parent worrying for my child. Where is this person? What happened? And she's independent, she's divorced, and really, when living alone, it creates all sorts of problematic circumstances. So in a case like that, where you're living on your own and you're independent, it really helps to have another person to contact. And there you have the positive traveling side of when an advisor can't get a hold of you. But then think about what happened in British Columbia in the last year with the floods, where a lot of people were displaced. And if you're independent and you go to live with your distant cousin or friend who's on the mainland or somewhere safe, it's really, if they don't reach out to contact you, how are you going to get a hold of them? So it's just another access to make sure that your client is being looked after and that they're okay. So we talked, also about if financial exploitation is suspected, and that's becoming more self-explanatory. But again, if something is happening that doesn't feel right to an advisor, it gives us an opportunity to escalate to our manager and then escalate to the trusted contact person. And one of the things that's going to inevitably happen as we continue to age is as older clients get older, some of them are as sharp as they ever have been, some of them are not as sharp as they ever have been, and admit it. So knowing that these limitations are out there for many individuals out there, it's nice to have that other trusted contact person where you can talk to them and say, hey, I talked to your friend and they're making a little bit of erratic decisions. Does this make sense to you? And so it really is an additional layer of protection. And the fourth being on this list here is that if I get a call out of the blue and someone says, hey, I'd like to withdraw some money, I have a power of attorney for client X, they're in the hospital and they need some money for personal care. I often don't have that documentation. As a firm, we try and get power of attorney through signed documents for our firm. But if we don't have it, it doesn't mean that power of attorneys can't act. But if I haven't heard this person and they come out of the blue, a trusted contact person can help connect the dots for you to put me at ease, saying, oh yes, that's the so-and-so's brother-in-law, and that's her closest confidant, and then we can proceed from there. But if the trusted contact person's never heard of this representation, whether it be a power of attorney or legal guardian or trustee or executor, it's going to be helpful. So those are the limited circumstances. So it's not going to be an everyday occurrence for sure, but it's really nice that it's out there as an extra layer of protection. So what can't a trusted contact person do? So that helps to frame, it's important to know where a contact person can be helpful, but what can't a trusted contact person do? Basically, they can't authorize any transactions on behalf of the client. They can't make decisions on your behalf whatsoever. And I cannot give them any access to any of your account information. So it really is very qualitative, and there is no financial information that's being passed forward. It's just about how is the health, or have you heard from this person, and it really helps to round out some of the details that we might be missing when we can't get a hold of somebody, or if you're making poor decisions. So qualities of a good candidate to assign. So as I've been going through the slides with Risa, there's a lot of basic facts we could have sent out in just a one-page PDF, but part of the challenge is, for some situations, it's not so simple to designate a trusted contact person, and we will get into some of the criteria that I think will be helpful. But number one, you want to have someone that will protect your interests, and that's above all, someone you trust. And for some people, it's in their nature not to be so, forthcoming with people that they trust. So even that in itself can be challenging at times. But someone who knows you on a daily basis to notice changes in your personal situations. So we'll be talking about whether it's somebody who gives you help every day, or someone you speak to once every couple of months, and where does it all fit in as a trusted contact person. Someone who has to be familiar with your support network is critical. And then typically someone who's not involved in your finances, preferably not your power of attorney, because it's part of the qualities of a TCP is to add additional layers of protection against power of attorney. Now, Risa, we go back and forth about this, and Risa has some very interesting and insightful commentary on why it may not make sense to have your power of attorney as your trusted contact person, and what kind of challenges might come up as a result.
I think that, it becomes a difficult situation and question sometimes as who to be appointing as your trusted contact person, because a lot of the qualities that you're looking at in terms of who you want to appoint are people who you want to appoint as your attorneys for property. And, because they're your closest people. So sometimes it's all your children who you may be appointing as your attorneys for property. But sometimes, the concern is it your power of attorney who's, abusing, your finances and taking money for themselves or whatever else. So I think you really need to decide who it might be. And, as Lauren said, that person's not making any decisions. They don't have any responsibilities. So to a certain extent, one of the things that I was thinking about is a lot of times I have clients who say to me, you know what, Risa, I would appoint my sister or I would appoint my friend, but they're my same age, or I don't want them to have the responsibilities that an attorney for property would have. But that would be a person who really is going to tick all those boxes that are on the screen right now, because they're going to protect your interests. They're going to notice if there's, changes. And it's really important that this person is going to be able to speak with your support network and your family, because if Lauren's speaking to them and he has concerns, because that person can't take, doesn't have authority to do anything, they have to take that discussion and either be able to speak with the person themselves or have a discussion with the family with regards to what the concerns may be. So, somebody like that may be a really good person who, but for other reasons, might be appointed as your power of attorney. Sometimes you may have situations where you've appointed all your children as your power of attorney, but really you have a much closer relationship with just one child. So it might be that you just want one particular child to be that contact person. So, there's lots of people who are available because they don't have to really have the financial acumen or other qualities that you're looking at for an attorney for property, but yet it's probably more those softer skills that you're looking at when thinking about who that trusted contact person will be.
Thank you, Risa. And it really is circumstantial. You think about an older matriarch with a living spouse and lots of kids and grandkids. They have lots of choices, but often, the most vulnerable are those that don't have that robust family to rely on for many things. And so that's part of the challenge as well, where you don't have options. And often the biggest problems come when you have too many options, but often it's harder when you don't have enough options. We have a quick slide here on why it's not recommended, and it's clear in all the documentation that we're supplied that a trusted contact person is a complement to a power of attorney. It's not a replacement. As we talked about, a trusted contact person, it's just there as a check and balance, and there's no financial discussion whatsoever or communication. So the roles are distinctly different, and generally it requires a different type of relation, but not always.
And just, one thing, Lauren, that we were just talking about before is that, generally when your attorneys for property, whoever it is contacting the advisor, before the advisor, say Lauren, can really deal with the attorney for property, they're often going to have to send the power of attorney document up to compliance, because the financial institutions want to protect your interest and safeguard why the attorney is acting. So they're going to go through a process where they may not immediately be able to provide information or have certain discussions with them, whereas these initial discussions can be had with your trusted contact person to find out what's going on, also maybe to confirm, this is who the attorneys for property are. Yes, the person had a stroke. There's an immediate need for money. So it kind of bypasses that initial screening, which can be very helpful when, emergencies arise.
Excellent, yes, because you're always looking for red flags, and if you can put some of those aside immediately, it's very helpful. So in the hopes of making it easier to assign your trusted contact person when we talk in the next few months, because we're going to be doing this, here's some ideas. Close friends or family members. Risa and I've had discussions about caregivers, because those are people who see you often more than anyone else does, but that has its own hazards. And Risa, you've seen challenges with caregivers in the past?
And I think that caregivers, I don't want you just to be thinking about the caregiver who's hired. A lot of times the caregiver can be a particular family member. And what you may be seeing is that often what happens is, money is taken out of the account to go and buy groceries, and, they're going to Shoppers, or you're going to buy things for the person, and they might have access to the credit card or the debit card, and the expenses, or they're taking cash out of the bank machines. And you're seeing these large withdrawals that aren't, that are being used, unfortunately, for the caregiver. And they're using it to supplement, well, I'm going to the grocery store, so I'll pick up a few more items for myself. Or it can become more, even egregious in terms of what the amounts are. The other thing, too, is depending upon who that caregiver is, say it is somebody who's hired, is that person really going to be able to communicate concerns to the family? Because, they may not feel that it's appropriate for them to be discussing questions regarding, what's going on in an account, and why is a financial advisor telling the caregiver this. So I really think that when you are naming it, you've got to be thinking about the roles and the interaction and who's appropriate in your case.
Yeah. And I think in the language here, a family member caregiver would be a better candidate than just the caregiver who's might be there just for hire. And your professional relationships are some of your closest ones. So there's not any one person in particular, but if you're in touch with your contact on a regular, with your accountant on a regular basis, or you've known him forever, they're very good in terms of perceiving maybe challenges within making financial decisions. A lawyer has been noted to be a very good candidate, someone that you're in touch with on a regular basis. And again, that's for a lot of these independent people who don't have family around them on a regular basis or talking to them on a regular basis, or other close contacts. Now, it should be noted that a financial advisor cannot be your TCP. And I was wondering out loud to myself whether if you had an account somewhere else that your other financial advisor could be the TCP, but maybe not. And you could have more than one TCP, and that would make sense. As you're older, you might have a spouse as the TPC, and as you both get older, you might want to have a third party as the TCP. So those are some ideas you might assign as the trusted contact, but just sort of imagine who would be okay hearing from me, asking some questions about your health or whereabouts, things of that nature. Now, who doesn't make a good candidate? So someone who doesn't know you well enough to notice any changes. So someone you speak to once a year isn't really going to cut it, I don't think. And if they're not familiar with your support network, they're not going to be as helpful as we would hope. And that's Risa was alluding to that. It should be somebody who is really in touch with you on a regular basis. Anything to add on to that, Risa?
No, I think, as you say, they really have to have that connection with your support network and your family, because if you are reaching out to them, there's obviously an issue, and you want to be able to, you want them to assist you in being able to address whatever the concern is. And whether it's speaking to the person personally or their family or support network, they've got to have that relationship.
Right. It's all about helping you. So you want to appoint someone who you think would most help you in the situation. So, should I tell my TCP when I ask you for one, you're going to give me the name of your cousin or sister or aunt? You should definitely let them know, because it's always good to be aware that we might be calling down the road. Maybe not today, but maybe in 10 years, who knows? And when should I appoint one? And the answer is, don't wait until you think, oh, well, I'm 50 now, and maybe when I'm 70 or 80, it's a good idea. But, put one in place for now, and unlikely that we'd really have to contact them, but at least it's there. You have a plan in place for the future, and you're in the habit of at least appointing one. So again, as I mentioned, the young person who went away and had a concussion, it can happen to anybody, and you just want to protect your future and your finances if you can. In conclusion, though, a trusted contact person is there for your protection, and really, I think the Canadian regulators, see that with age comes more challenges in terms of vulnerability, and it's just an extra layer of protection. And on that topic of protection, a lot of people aren't aware that a brokerage account has always been one of the safest places where you can keep your wealth, and a trusted contact person makes it a little safer, which is nice. And again, a lot of people aren't aware that if you want to take money out of your account, it's really impossible to do unless you speak to your advisor or myself personally. As any money that leaves your account, I need to sign a fraud form that guarantees that I've spoken to you, and it can attest the fact that you are who you are and the money has been requested. So again, it's all about safety, and this just adds to that element. And I want to thank everybody for their time on a Wednesday night. And if you're a client of mine, we are going to be having the discussion down the road. And if you're not, you're going to be having a discussion with your advisor down the road on a trusted contact person. So I hope this was helpful. We are recording this, and so if you know someone who might be able to get some benefit out of it, by all means, you could forward it to them. It'll be on my website in about a week. Thank you so much, Risa, for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Lord. It's a pleasure.
Your insight was excellent, and it's really good to hear how, for a significant percentage out there, this can be a very important document, a very important designation, and that's what we're here to talk about. So thanks a lot, and thanks everybody for attending.
Good night.